Rinra pushed me down onto the luxurious leather sofa, the cold blade of a dagger pressed against the side of my neck. Her voice, trembling with a flirtatious yet dangerous edge, whispered in my ear. "Young master, since your inner voice says you love me most, don't even think about escaping my side alive. Welcome to Apex System, an exciting story is about to begin." The magnificent crystal chandelier cast a soft glow over the 5-meter-long mahogany dining table, while the air was filled with the enticing aroma of top-tier truffles and Kobe Wagyu beef. Sitting at the head of the table, I looked at this warm, dreamlike scene, still finding it hard to believe my luck. Just 3 days ago, I had inexplicably traveled to this parallel world and become Kiryu Sakuya, the sole male heir to the Kiryu Group, a trillion-yen conglomerate that holds absolute power in Japan. A staggering family business, assets exceeding 1 trillion yen, and a luxurious villa resembling a medieval European castle, these were just the tip of the iceberg of the wealth under my name. What made me feel even more lightheaded were the 3 stunning beauties sitting beside me, my 3 sisters, to whom I am not related by blood. "Sakuya, you must be tired from school today, right? Here, try some of this matsutake and abalone soup I stewed for you myself." Sitting to my left was the eldest sister, Reina Kiryu. She wore a homey yet elegant beige maxi dress, her jet black hair gracefully pinned back, exuding the perfect aura of a Yamato Nadeshiko in every gesture. She was gently stirring the amber-colored broth in a white porcelain bowl with a sterling silver spoon, a smile on her lips so tender it could melt anyone. "Big sister, that's so cunning, hogging Sakuya's attention the moment you arrive," pouted the second sister, Mocha Kiryu, who sat opposite me. She had dazzling blonde hair and wore eye-catching, trendy clothes even at home. As a top-tier national idol currently at the peak of her fame, she had even cancelled a commercial performance worth 10 million yen today just to come home and have dinner with me. At the other end of the dining table, the third sister, Hyoka Kiryu, adjusted her gold-rimmed glasses. Dressed in a well-tailored black professional suit, her cold and stunningly beautiful face remained largely expressionless, yet she did the unthinkable by putting down her tablet. She shot a cold glance at Mocha. "Shut up. You're too loud. You'll ruin Sakuya's meal." She was a genius of the financial world, controlling a massive flow of capital within the conglomerate. Not only am I pampered by my breathtakingly beautiful sisters as if they were competing for my affection, but standing tall and straight behind me is my exclusive silver-haired, red-eyed maid, Shina Rinru. Dressed in a sophisticated English maid uniform with her slender legs encased in black tights, she even carries a tactical dagger concealed at her waist. She is both my maid and the personal bodyguard who ensures my safety. Wealth, power, and family affection, it feels as though I've started my life at the very pinnacle of existence. However, just as I was about to smile and accept the bowl of hot soup handed to me by Rina, a translucent blue panel, visible only to me, suddenly popped up before my retinas without warning. Ding! It has been detected that the host has fully adapted to the current world. The Eye of Truth and Inner Voice system has been activated. System description: the host can see through anyone's true favorability toward you and their hidden statuses. Meanwhile, your intense inner emotional complaints will be heard by specific individuals with extremely high favorability. I froze for a moment. A system? Had the standard issue, Golden Finger, for transmigrators finally arrived? Driven by curiosity, I immediately shifted my gaze toward my eldest sister, Rina, who was currently handing a soup bowl to me. Target: Rina Kiryu, apparent identity, gentle and considerate eldest sister. True favorability, -99, extreme loathing/murderous intent. Hidden status, currently executing a poisoning plot. The matsutake and abalone soup she is offering has been laced with a colorless, odorless chronic neurotoxin. Long-term consumption will cause the host's organs to fail within a month, mimicking a natural sudden death, allowing her to smoothly inherit the Kiryu conglomerate. With a sudden buzz, my mind went blank, and the blood in my veins seemed to freeze solid at that very moment. A favorability rating of -99? Chronic poison? I stared in disbelief at Rina, whose smile remained as gentle and moving as ever, feeling a fine cold sweat uncontrollably seeping from my back. Deep within those seemingly tender eyes, a venomous serpent was clearly lying in wait. Refusing to believe my luck, I immediately turned to look at Mocha and Hyoka. Target: Kiryu Mocha true favorability, -80, extreme vanity/misandry. Hidden status: currently planning to use forged recordings during tomorrow's global livestream to frame the host as an irredeemable profligate, attempting to utterly ruin the host's reputation. Target: Kiryu Hyoka true favorability, -90, cold-blooded/greed. Hidden status: hiding a forged stock transfer agreement in her briefcase. Last week, she used her position to quietly embezzle $1 million of the group's overseas funds, intending to frame the host. Crazy. It's all fucking crazy. This is no loving, heavenly family. This is a lethal poison trap, meticulously laid out to fight over a 1 trillion yen inheritance. These 3 sisters, who seem so perfectly obedient and flawless on the surface, are actually malevolent demons who want to take my life and destroy me. What's wrong, Sakuya? Reina looked at my hand frozen in midair and tilted her head, the concern on her face absolutely impeccable. Is it too hot? Shall I blow on it for you? As she spoke, she picked up the bowl and once again brought the spoonful of lethally toxic soup toward my lips. A surge of immense fear and rage churned wildly within my chest. On the surface, I forced a facade of composure, my lips pulling into a stiff, strained smile, while my mind roared in a frenzy. These crazy women! What a masterful performance! This seemingly gentle eldest sister actually laced the soup with chronic toxins. If I really drink this, my organs will fail within a month, and I'll die without anyone ever knowing why. They're all after the assets under my name. How can I knock this bowl of poisoned soup over now without making it look suspicious? Just as this frantic inner monologue flashed through my mind, standing behind me, the maid Riru, who had been as motionless as an iceberg, suddenly experienced an extremely unnatural stiffening of her body. From the corner of my eye, I keenly caught the moment Riru's normally emotionless red pupils constricted violently. She abruptly lowered her head, staring deathly at the bowl of matsutake and abalone soup in Reina's hands. Her hands, hanging by the sides of her skirt, instantly clenched into tight fists, the veins on the back of her hands bulging one by one from sheer, intense fury. Wait. My heart skipped a beat. Did the system just say, my inner thoughts can be heard by specific individuals with extremely high favorability? To verify the bold hypothesis in my mind, I immediately focused the system's eye of truth on the silver-haired, red-eyed personal maid standing behind me. A translucent blue panel materialized once again. Target, Shina Rinru apparent identity, exclusive maid and bodyguard. True favorability, 100, loyal unto death/fanatical adoration. Hidden status, has just intercepted the host's inner thoughts. Having learned that someone is attempting to assassinate the host, she is currently in a state of extreme rage and is ready to draw her tactical dagger to slit the poisoner's throat at any moment. A maximum favorability score of 100. I couldn't help but gasp. In this family, where humanity had been warped by a 1 trillion yen fortune, my only lifeline actually lay in the hands of this cold, taciturn maid. Sakuya? Why are you spacing out? The eldest sister Reina's gentle, urging voice rang out again, the silver spoon already pressing against my lips. The rich aroma of matsutake mushrooms wafted into my nose, but in my eyes, it was no different from a lethal gas. I had to take action immediately. I concentrated my mind, staring intently at the bowl of soup, and screamed in the depths of my heart, Rinru. Whatever you do, don't draw your blade. We don't have concrete evidence yet. If we strike now, the outside world will just think I, the Chable heir, have gone insane. Listen to me, find a way to spill this soup. Make it look like an accident. You absolutely cannot let this poisonous woman become suspicious. The very next second, as I was inwardly screaming, a miracle occurred. Rinryu, who had been standing silently behind me, suddenly sprang into action like a precision machine receiving a top priority command. She didn't draw her lethal tactical dagger. Instead, with a movement that was incredibly natural, elegant, and lightning fast, she picked up the heavy European silver teapot from the table. Young master, your Ceylon tea has grown a bit cold. Please allow me to replace it for you. Rinryu's voice remained as cold as ice, devoid of any emotional fluctuation. She stepped forward, her body sliding perfectly into the narrow gap between Rina and me. At the exact moment she leaned in slightly to pour the tea, her wrist gave an unnaturally clumsy slip. Clang! The silver teapot slammed hard against the back of Rina's hand as she held the soup bowl. Scalding hot black tea, propelled by significant force, splashed unerringly onto her. Ah! Rina let out a cry of pain, the back of her hand turning a searing red. Driven by the sharp agony, she instinctively loosened her grip. The white porcelain bowl, filled with slow-acting poison, slipped from her hand and crashed heavily onto the expensive Persian rug, shattering into pieces. The amber liquid immediately seeped into the wool fibers, emitting faint wisps of steam. Ah! Sister, are you all right? I immediately feigned a look of panic and scrambled to my feet, though internally I was so satisfied I could have burst out laughing. Nicely done, Rinryu. Rinryu immediately dropped to one knee, head bowed, his voice so calm it was impossible to find fault with. My deepest apologies, Lady Rina. My hand slipped and I startled you. Please punish me as you see fit. I kept my eyes fixed on Rina's face using my peripheral vision. The moment the soup bowl shattered, I saw it clearly through the system. A flash of hideously distorted resentment and frustration crossed Rina's otherwise flawless, gentle face. But that expression lasted for less than a second before it was once again covered by her impeccable mask of tenderness. It's all right, Rinru didn't mean it. Rina covered the slightly reddened back of her hand with a silk handkerchief, forcing a smile. It's just a pity about this soup. I spent 3 whole hours brewing it specifically for Sakuya. If you can't even hold a bowl steady, big sister, you might as well stop trying to curry favor in front of Sakuya. Sitting opposite her, the second sister, Mocha, swirled the crystal goblet in her hand, making no effort to hide the schadenfreude in her tone. The third sister, Hyoka, pushed up her gold-rimmed glasses. Casting a look of disgust at the mess on the floor, she said coldly, "Call the servants to clean this up immediately. A stained carpet like this is truly nauseating." Faced with the cold mockery of her 2 younger sisters, the corner of Rina's mouth twitched slightly. However, she maintained her elegant Yamato Nadeshiko demeanor and responded in a soft, compliant voice. Watching these 3 women, each with their own hidden agendas, putting on an act before me, the cold sneer in my heart grew even deeper. I continued to transmit instructions to Rinru in my mind. Rinru, when you clean the carpet later, remember to secretly cut off a piece of the soup-stained fiber and preserve it. This will be ironclad evidence for the lab. Once I've gathered proof of all their crimes, I will absolutely make them pay. Kneeling on the carpet, Rinru didn't speak, but she tilted her head up slightly, her crimson eyes meeting mine for a fleeting moment. I clearly saw her give a microscopic nod, a flicker of reassuring fanaticism and absolute obedience shimmering deep within her gaze. The first step of the counterattack, perfectly executed. The following evening, I was forcibly dragged by my second sister, Kiryu Mocha, into her private live-stream studio, which spanned a full 200 square meters. The luxurious room was filled with various out-of-print figurines, and top-tier recording equipment worth 10 million yen was set up in front of a pink velvet sofa. At this moment, there were only 5 minutes left until Mocha's live stream for her 1 million followers across the entire network. Don't get too close to me. The smell of a man on you is truly disgusting. Mocha, who had just been holding my arm and acting all sweet in the hallway, immediately shook off my hand with loathing the moment the door closed. Her face, as exquisite as a doll's, was filled with undisguised disgust. The system panel appeared at the perfect time, true favorability, -80, extreme vanity/misandry. Mocha pulled a black miniature player out of her designer bag, twirling it between her fingertips as she looked at me with a sneer. Listen up, Sakuya. Once the live stream starts, I'll be the one guiding the conversation. If you dare to be uncooperative, I'll plug this player directly into the sound card. Inside is a perfectly synthesized recording I paid a fortune for. It features your glorious deeds of trying to coerce an underage girl with 10 million yen. Once this goes live, not even the Kiryu Group's PR department will be able to save your rotten reputation. Just play your part as the useless, profligate son to make your sister look perfect, got it? Looking at the national idol before me, hailed as a once-into-millennium beauty, I put on a submissive and terrified front, even shrinking back half a step in feigned horror. But deep down, I had already issued a cold command. Rinru, you're hiding behind the dressing room blinds right now, aren't you? Turn on the micro camera on your uniform button. Record her vicious face and that miniature player in her hand. Get everything clearly. Make sure the audio is captured too. This is nuclear-grade dirt, enough to cause the social death of a national idol in an instant. In the gap of the changing room, a faint, almost imperceptible flash of dark red light flickered. It was the signal that Rinria's custom tactical equipment had been activated. As an all-purpose maid and top-tier bodyguard, this kind of infiltration and covert evidence gathering was as natural to her as breathing. All right, time's up. Put away that pathetic look of yours. Mocha took a deep breath. The moment the countdown hit 0 and the live broadcast indicator lit up, the disgust on her face vanished instantly like a Sichuan opera mask change, replaced by a smile so sweet it was almost sickening. Good evening, everyone! Welcome to Mocha's stream! Wow, we've actually surpassed 1 million viewers today, thank you all so much! Mocha blew a heart at the camera, then intimately grabbed my arm, pulling an unsuspecting me into the frame. Look, this is Mocha's most beloved little brother, Sakuya. The bullet comments instantly began scrolling frantically like a waterfall. Ah, Lady Mocha is so beautiful. The younger brother is way too handsome, these genes are divine. Mocha is truly an incredible older sister, I'm so jealous of him. Watching the screen fill with praise, a flicker of smug vanity flashed in Mocha's eyes. She immediately got down to business, speaking into the camera with an extremely aggrieved and worried tone. Actually, the reason I brought Sakuya here today is because I'm a little worried about him. Sakuya has been spending a lot lately. Didn't you swipe 100 million yen in one go the day before yesterday to buy a limited edition sports car? Although the Kiryu family isn't short on money, I'm so afraid you'll turn into the kind of spendthrift who only knows how to squander wealth. What a classic green tea move, killing him with over-the-top praise. If I were to go along with her words and admit it, or lose my temper, the image of an arrogant and insolent chaebol brat would be completely solidified. If I denied it, she would produce that forged recording and deal me a fatal blow right then and there. I maintained an elegant smile, while internally calling out once more, Rinryo, this crazy woman is about to hit play. Use your miniature signal jammer to cut the Bluetooth connection between that crappy player of hers and the sound card. I want her to experience exactly what it feels like to shoot oneself in the foot. At the very moment Mocha was hypocritically wiping away tears while pressing the player's switch with her left hand hidden behind her back. Not a single sound came out. Mocha's smile stiffened slightly. Refusing to give up, she pressed the switch several more times with force. There was still nothing but dead silence. Watching the cold sweat gradually breaking out on her forehead, I deliberately turned toward the camera and flashed an extremely gentle, well-bred smile. Sister, you've misunderstood. That 100 million yen was a donation I made in your name to an orphanage's charitable foundation. I thought about how hard you usually work and how you've always wanted to do charity but never had the time, so I fulfilled that wish for you. Sister, you won't blame me for taking the initiative, will you? As soon as these words were spoken, the live stream's bullet chat instantly exploded, with everyone frantically praising the Kiryu siblings for their kindness and great compassion. Meanwhile, Mocha, sitting beside me, looked livid. Her signal had been jammed. Her plan was in total ruin, and she was agonizing over the fact that I had casually fabricated a 100 million yen charitable donation in her name. Yet, she was forced to squeeze out a smile for the camera that looked more painful than crying. The second step of the counterattack was perfectly achieved. The recording capable of destroying my second sister was now safely stored in Rinra's device. The following morning, sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the manor's top-floor study, spilling across the cold marble floor. This is the private domain of the third sister, Hyuka Kiryu. The entire room is decorated in a palette of black, white, and gray, devoid of any superfluous ornamentation, exuding a sense of minimalist coldness that keeps people at a distance. The air is filled with her signature scent of crisp, chilly cedar, causing one to unconsciously feel mentally tense. Thud. A thick stack of documents was tossed onto the wide black walnut desk. Hyuka sat in a high-backed leather chair, her long legs crossed, their perfect curves encased in black silk stockings. She adjusted the gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of her nose, and her eyes, as cold and devoid of warmth as polar glaciers, swept toward me. Her voice carried the tone of an unquestionable command. Sakuya, this is the financial confirmation for the 100 million yen charity donation you took the liberty of promising in Mocha's live stream yesterday. Since the boast has already been made, the group must naturally follow legal procedures. Sign your name on the last page. I stood before the desk, looking at the seemingly ordinary legal document, while the system's cold notification rang in my mind. Target, Kiryu Hyuka True Affection, -90, cold-blooded/greedy. Hidden status update. The surface layer of this document is a charitable foundation confirmation letter, but it actually contains an equity transfer agreement printed with invisible ink. Furthermore, a financial trap has been set in the subsidiary liability clauses, attempting to make the host take the full legal fall for the $1 million in overseas public funds she embezzled last week. My eyelid twitched slightly. What a ruthless tactic. By utilizing chemical invisible ink and tedious legal jargon, she not only intends to seize the massive group shares under my name without shedding a drop of blood but also wants me to cover her $1 million embezzlement deficit. Once I sign this name, I will not only be ousted with nothing to my name but will also face extremely serious economic crime charges, being sent straight to prison for the rest of my life. In this house, as expected, not a single woman is to be trifled with. Maintaining a slightly reserved smile, I reached out and picked up the Mont Blanc fountain pen from the desk, while simultaneously issuing an immediate command to Rinryu, who stood by on standby. Rinryu, my third sister, that cold, calculating fox, is trying to set me up. The moment I sign this document, I won't just lose all my shares. I'll be the fall guy for her $1 million embezzlement scheme. The tablet on the left side of her desk is currently running an offshore fund transfer program. That's the back end she's using to wash the money into a Cayman Islands shell company. Activate your tactical hacking gear right now and download the entire package: fund transfer records, IP addresses, and shell company registration info. It must be done completely undetected. Standing slightly behind me, Riru maintained her impeccable, perfect maid persona, her eyes slightly downcast. However, the instant she received my mental transmission, there was an imperceptible flick of her wrist beneath the lace cuff of her maid uniform. It was a military-grade near-field hacking terminal, disguised as a mechanical wristwatch. Lady Binghua, here is the ice-drip coffee prepared for you. Riru carried a silver tray, walking to the side of the desk with elegant and light steps. In the brief 2 seconds it took to set down the coffee cup, Rinryu's wrist was less than 10 centimeters away from Binghua's tablet. A faint stream of data, invisible to the naked eye, had already utilized near-field infiltration technology to frantically copy all the ironclad evidence, enough to ruin Binghua forever, into Rinryu's miniature storage device. Nicely done. Seeing that the evidence was now in hand, I deliberately uncapped my fountain pen, pretending I was about to sign, only to stop just a moment before the nib could touch the paper. I flipped to page 14 of the document, the very page the system had flagged for invisible ink and financial traps, and put on a look of naive confusion. Third sister, why is this charity fund confirmation so complicated? And this subsidiary liability clause? This string of overseas account codes looks so strange. I recall there being a funding gap of exactly $1 million on the books of the group's European branch recently. If I sign this bad debt won't somehow end up being pinned on me, will it? The moment those words were spoken, the air in the study seemed to drop to freezing point instantly. A rare crack appeared on Binghua's beautiful face, which was usually as cold as frost, and remained unmoved even if Mount Tai were to collapse before her. Deep within her eyes, which were normally as calm as still water, a flash of unmistakable shock and panic flickered. Even her fingers, resting on the desk, curled slightly in an uncontrollable twitch. The specific amount of $1 million, and the secret account of the European branch, this was a perfectly executed piece of fraudulent accounting. How could this usually good-for-nothing Chable younger brother see through it at a single glance? Target's true favorability is fluctuating, currently in a state of extreme panic/suspicion. I looked at the system prompt, a cold sneer in my heart, yet my face remained a mask of innocent simplicity. Holding the pen, I asked, "Third sister, what's wrong? Did I misread something? If there are no issues, I'll sign it now." Wait. Binghua stood up abruptly and snatched the document from my hand. Because her movement was so violent, she accidentally knocked against the coffee cup on the table, causing the ice cubes to make a sharp clinking sound. She stared at me intently, as if trying to find a single flaw in my expression, but my clear, foolish eyes evidently offered her nothing. Finally, she took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing the panic in her heart, and regained her high and mighty, icy demeanor. "There might have been a formatting error in the legal department. They must have mixed and discarded clauses from other projects. This document is void. I'll have them draft a new one," Binghua said coldly, shoving the document directly into the nearby paper shredder. Accompanied by the harsh mechanical grinding sound, the poisonous contract that could have ruined me was turned into confetti. "All right, then I'll leave it to you, third sister. I'm going back to my room to rest now." I nodded very obediently, turned around, and led Lin Lu out of the study. The moment the heavy mahogany doors closed, I let out a long sigh of relief, a cold curve finally tugging at the corners of my mouth. The physical evidence of the chronic poison, the career-ending video recordings, and the ironclad proof of this $1 million embezzlement, all three Damoclean swords hanging over their heads, were now firmly gripped in my hands. The roles of hunter and prey have now completely reversed. The Kiryu Zaibatsu's annual charity gala was held at a premier private hotel owned by the conglomerate in the heart of Tokyo. Resplendent crystal chandeliers hung from the dome of the grand ballroom, while melodic classical symphonies flowed through the air. Political and business elites mingled with champagne in hand, as flashbulbs strobed incessantly across the red carpet area. On an occasion like this, the Kiryu family naturally had to project a perfect image of brotherly love and domestic harmony to the outside world. The eldest sister, Rina, wore a gentle custom-made kimono. The second sister, Mocha, had changed into an eye-catching starry sky haute couture gown. And the third sister, Hyoka, was dressed in a sharply tailored black velvet evening dress. They smiled charmingly for the cameras, even intimately linking arms with mine, as if we were the most loving siblings in the world. However, once the socializing ended and the four of us retreated to the semi-open VIP lounge terrace on the second floor of the banquet hall, that layer of hypocritical masks was instantly torn to shreds. Rina immediately wiped the fingers that had just held my arm with a disinfectant wipe. Mocha rolled her eyes in disgust at her makeup mirror, and Hyoka stood coldly to the side, checking her emails. The air was thick with a suffocating chill and alienation. I stood at the edge of the terrace, looking down at the elegantly dressed guests below, my fingertips gently swirling the golden champagne in my goblet. It is time. I quickly transmitted instructions to Rinru behind me in my mind. Rinru, no matter how abnormally I behave in a moment, pretend you haven't heard a thing. Just block the view of any outsiders for me. On this perfect stage, I'm going to give them a little something extra. Rinru took a silent half-step forward, using her tall frame to perfectly block the only blind spot leading to the terrace. I tilted my head back, draining the highly potent special champagne in one gulp. Then, I deliberately swayed my body, feigning a tipsy state with blurred eyes as if I couldn't handle the alcohol. Leaning halfway against the cold marble railing, I began my performance in a volume that was only audible to the four of us, yet sounded like a low mutter to myself. Strange. I really can't wrap my head around it. I muttered incoherently, rubbing my temples. Why did Mocha's manager suddenly ask me about the ingredients in Big Sister Reina's Matsutake soup the day before yesterday? How did she know there was something special added to that soup? The moment those words left my mouth, the deathly silent air on the terrace seemed to instantly freeze. Reina's movement as she wiped her fingers came to a sudden halt. Those eyes, usually as gentle as water, instantly shot out a venomous, viper-like glare, locking onto Mocha standing beside her. I didn't give them time to react, continuing to mutter to myself as if in a drunken stupor with my eyes closed. And then yesterday, I clearly saw Big Sister Reina's personal maid loitering by the door of Third Sister Ichika's study. Could it be that Big Sister was looking for that forged contract regarding the $1 million gap in the offshore accounts, the one that went through the paper shredder? Why would Big Sister be checking Third Sister's books? Binhwa's perennial ice-cold expression finally shattered completely. She snapped her head up, glaring at Reina with a mix of disbelief and extreme fury, the stemware in her hand nearly crushed under her grip. The strangest thing is, I let out a drunken hiccup, my voice growing lower and lower. Why was Sister Binghwa's assistant seen near Sister Mocha's live stream equipment warehouse yesterday? Sister Mocha's microplayer suddenly malfunctioned. Could it be that Sister Binghwa used a signal jammer to sabotage it? We're family. Why would she do that? Asterisk clatter. Asterisk the makeup mirror in Mocha's hand dropped onto the carpet. She whipped her head around, her exquisite idol-like face now contorted with rage, teeth clenched as she glared death at Binghwa. These three, leaked, inner thoughts were like three precision-guided depth charges, blowing their most lethal secrets to smithereens and perfectly splashing the filth onto one another. I deliberately snapped my eyes open at that moment, feigning a look of half-sobered terror. I covered my mouth and took 2 steps back. Did I just say what I was thinking out loud? I'm sorry, eldest sister, second sister, third sister. I've had too much to drink, I don't know anything. I was just talking nonsense. Given their arrogant and conceited personalities, they would never believe that their useless younger brother was capable of uncovering evidence of their crimes on his own. Therefore, in their twisted logic, the only explanation was that the other 2 sisters had discovered their secrets, and were attempting to use a fool like me to expose them in public, killing with a borrowed knife. The system's blue panel flashed frantically across my retina, looking almost like a firework display. Target Kiryu Reina, hatred shifted. Currently feels extreme hostility toward Kiryu Mocha and Kiryu Hyoka. Target Kiryu Mocha, hatred shifted. Currently feels extreme hostility toward Kiryu Hyoka. Target Kiryu Hyoka, hatred shifted. Currently feels extreme hostility toward Kiryu Reina. Fine. You really are my dear sister. Reina was the first to break the deathly silence. Her once gentle face was now contorted into a chilling mask as she looked at Mocha with a cold, lingering smile. I wondered why you were being so passive-aggressive at the dinner table that day. So, you've had people spying on my kitchen all along? Don't act like the victim, Reina. Mocha snapped back without hesitation, pointing a finger directly at Reina's nose. You venomous woman, how dare you audit Hyoka's accounts? What, trying to kick us all out and monopolize the inheritance of the Chable? And Hyoka, you're a bitch too, hacking my streaming equipment just to ruin my reputation, weren't you? Shut up, you vain, brainless fool. A cold, murderous intent flickered in Hyoka's eyes as she glared at Reina and Mocha. Since you both dared to lay a finger on my offshore accounts, don't blame me for disregarding our sisterly bonds. At tomorrow morning's board meeting, I'll show you exactly what consequences mean. You wouldn't dare. Just watch me. Watching these 3 Chable heiresses, who were once so high and mighty, so arrogant, now tearing at each other like 3 rabid dogs on the terrace, biting and threatening one another, I lowered my head, hiding the almost uncontrollable, arrogant smile at the corners of my mouth in the shadows. Rinryo. I called out softly in my mind. I am here, young master. Rinryu's cold voice responded within my consciousness. I've seen enough of this show. Help me back to rest. Tomorrow, we have a major battle to fight. Rinryu respectfully supported my arm, escorting me away from this powder keg that was about to explode. The moment I turned around, I heard the crisp sound of a slap and the loud crash of shattering porcelain behind me. The real show has only just begun. Late the following night, at the B3 underground parking lot of the Kiryu Zaibatsu headquarters. The air was thick with the cold, damp smell of car exhaust mixed with wet concrete, while the overhead ventilation fans emitted a dull, heavy roar. Having finished my routine inspection of the conglomerate, I was heading toward the exclusive black bulletproof sedan with Rinru. The moment I stepped out of the elevator hall, the system's glaring red warning panel began flashing frantically across my retina. Extreme danger warning! Detected murderous intent resonance from targets Kiryu Reina, Kiryu Moka, and Kiryu Hyoka. Emergency event update. To prevent the host from leaking their fatal scandals at tomorrow's family board meeting, the three women, driven by extreme panic and suspicion, have reached a temporary truce. They have jointly pooled 50 million yen to hire 5 elite operatives from the underground armed organization, Venom Fong, via the dark web. They intend to physically kidnap the host here and transport you to an abandoned warehouse for execution. I looked at the intelligence on the panel, a mocking sneer involuntarily curling the corners of my mouth. These 3 foolish women were practically ready to skin each other alive on the terrace last night, yet today they've actually joined forces to deal with me, their feeble, useless younger brother. Unfortunately for them, they will never know that this seemingly seamless assassination and kidnapping plot is as laughably transparent as a glass display case before my inner voice and system radar. I maintained my casual pace, even leisurely whistling a tune, but deep in my mind, I had already issued precise tactical instructions to Rin Lu at my side. Rin Lu, the prey has entered the net. 5 rats in total. 2 are hiding in the shadows of the load-bearing pillars in Zone C directly ahead, equipped with high-voltage stun guns and potent ether. The other 3 are lurking in that black van with clone plates 10 meters away from our car, armed with suppressed Glocks. In 30 seconds, they will cut the lighting circuit in this area and strike under the cover of darkness. Rinryu, dressed in a tasteful black and white maid uniform, moved with steps as elegant as a waltz. She replied calmly within my consciousness. Understood, young master. Target locked. To what extent should they be cleared? Except for the leader with the communicator, dislocate the limb joints of the other 4. As you wish. Click. The moment the 30-second countdown hit 0, the fluorescent lights across the entire B3 parking level let out a soft pop and simultaneously extinguished. The surroundings plunged into an absolute darkness where one could not see their own hand in front of their face. Almost at the same instant, the faint sound of rubber soles scuffing against the ground rapidly approached from behind a load-bearing pillar. However, in the face of Rinryu, who possessed night vision tactical cybernetic eyes and a panoramic map view, this darkness-based tactic was nothing short of a death wish. I stood my ground, not even blinking, as the silence was broken by a series of gruesome, bone-crushing snaps echoing through the dark. Crack! Arg! It was the sound of human joints being snapped backward in an instant by immense force. The first assassin didn't even have time to draw his stun gun before Rinryu shattered his knee with a precise low leg sweep, followed immediately by a hand chop to the back of his neck that sent him crashing onto the concrete floor like a heavy sack of grain. Immediately after, the door of the black van was flung open. The people inside seemed to have sensed something was wrong and were preparing to raise their guns and fire. However, the perfect anticipation I provided through my inner voice allowed Rinryu to lock onto the door's trajectory 2 seconds in advance. She closed the distance like a bolt of black lightning, her custom titanium alloy folding fan carving a cold arc through the darkness, precisely severing the tendons in the second assassin's gun-wielding wrist. As blood sprayed, the other 2 assassins were also instantly subdued by her terrifying close-quarters combat skills, their limbs swiftly dislocated. The entire process took less than 15 seconds. When the emergency red lights of the parking lot flickered to life, the ground was littered with underground operatives writhing in pain, completely incapacitated. Rinryu stood quietly 3 paces ahead of me, using a pristine white handkerchief to gently wipe a single drop of blood from her fingertip, her breathing as steady as if she had just finished dusting a room. I walked up to the mercenary leader, the only one who remained conscious, his eyes wide with terror as he stared at us. His right hand was pinned under Rinryu's foot, still deathly gripped around an encrypted satellite phone that was currently in the middle of a call. That was the communication tool he had intended to use to report the successful kidnapping to my 3 dear sisters. I leaned down, pulled the phone from his trembling hand, cleared my throat, and, using an utterly innocent, even slightly panicked sob, cried out to the person on the other end. Big sister? Second sister? Third sister? Are you there? Sob, sob. I was so scared. I just ran into kidnappers in the parking lot. They actually had guns and stun batons. It was terrifying. From the other end of the line came an extremely faint, sharp intake of breath, followed by a suffocating, deathly silence. Suppressing the urge to laugh, I continued in a trembling voice. But luckily, Riru subdued them all. I accidentally overheard just now that this gang of thugs apparently took 50 million yen in hush money. Don't worry, sisters. I'm calling the 1st Investigation Division of the Metropolitan Police Department right now, and I'll have the conglomerate's legal department intervene in the investigation. With a paper trail as large as 50 million yen, they'll definitely be able to follow the clues, catch the mastermind who wanted to hurt me, and throw them in prison for life. Don't you agree, sisters? Asterisk click. Asterisk. The phone was abruptly hung up, followed by the rapid staccato of a busy signal. Holding the phone and staring at the call-ended screen, the look of innocence on my face instantly dissolved into a chilling, mocking sneer. It seems my dear sisters are going to have another sleepless night, I sneered inwardly. By now, they were likely scared out of their wits, frantically trying to destroy the transfer records for that 50 million yen. Unfortunately for them, during those 15 seconds of struggle just now, Riru had already used hacking equipment to reverse trace the communicator, packaging and locking down both the recordings of their conspiracy to hire a hitman and the evidence of the funds transfer. Kidnapping? Silencing? I truly must thank you for taking the initiative to hand me yet another perfect gift, one that will be more than enough to send you straight to hell. The Kiryu Zaibatsu headquarters, located on the top floor of a skyscraper overlooking Tokyo Bay. At 10 o'clock in the morning, sunlight streamed through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, spilling unreservedly onto the polished mahogany conference table, yet it did nothing to dispel the heavy, oppressive atmosphere in the room. The eldest sister, Rina, sat poised at the head of the table, her face still wearing that same gentle, compassionate smile. The second sister, Mocha, toyed listlessly with her diamond-encrusted nails, her eyes brimming with arrogance. Meanwhile, the third sister, Hyoka, adjusted the gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of her nose as she handed a thick resolution document to the head of the legal department standing beside her. Distinguished board members. Hyoka's voice was as cold as ice, carrying an unquestionable authority. In light of Sakuya's recent absurd behavior in public and the fact that he possesses zero management capability, we three sisters have decided to exercise our family's temporary oversight rights. We are stripping him of his status as the first-in-line heir and will hold all shares under his name on his behalf for the time being. The conglomerate executives below looked at one another in silence. Under the accumulated prestige and pressure of the three heiresses, the entire conference room was as quiet as a cicada in winter. No one dared to raise an objection. Just as the head of legal was bracing himself to put pen to paper, bang! The heavy double-leaf cypress doors were slammed open with a resounding crash. Dressed in a perfectly tailored black custom suit, I stepped into the conference room with Rin Lu, my hands tucked nonchalantly in my pockets. The facade I had maintained for so long, that of a naive, easily manipulated fool, was completely shattered, replaced by an unveiled coldness and mockery. My three dear sisters, I said, my long strides taking me directly to the head of the conference table. I leaned forward, bracing my hands on the surface as I looked down at them from a position of dominance. You're in such a hurry to carve up the inheritance father left behind that you didn't even bother to notify the rightful owner. Isn't that a bit unseemly? The eldest sister, Rina, stood up, her brow furrowed as she attempted to exert her authority. Sakuya, do not be impudent. This is a board meeting, not a place for your tantrums. We are stripping you of your inheritance rights for the sake of the conglomerate's future. For the sake of the chaebol? I couldn't help but let out a scoff, snapping my fingers crisply. Beside me, Rinru immediately moved forward like a phantom, precisely hurling 3 thick document folders in front of my 3 sisters with a dull thud. I pulled open the first file and slammed it down hard in front of Rina. Big sister, this is the lab report for the Talinin, a chronic neurotoxin, that you ordered to be put into my daily matsutake soup over the past 2 weeks. Your personal maid was persuaded by Rinru last night, and has already submitted a full statement to the police. What's the matter? Since you couldn't poison me to death, were you planning to just rob me openly at the board meeting today? Rina's mask of gentleness shattered instantly. She stared fixedly at the red seal of the Metropolitan Police Department's forensic examiner on the report. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed back into her leather chair, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. I turned to look at Mocha and tossed a black USB drive in front of her. Second sister, this contains the complete ledgers of you laundering money through overseas underground casinos using your personal studio's shell company, as well as high-definition recordings of your manager bribing the relevant officials. The amount totals hundreds of millions of yen. I imagine the Tax Bureau and the Second Investigation Division would be very interested in this dirt. You! How did you get these? Mocha screamed in terror, her exquisite idol makeup now distorted beyond recognition by extreme fear. She desperately reached out with trembling hands, trying to snatch the USB drive that was enough to ruin her reputation and career. As for you, third sister, I ignored Mocha's pathetic display and locked my cold gaze onto Hyoka. The $1 million in public funds you embezzled last week flowed into a shell company in the Cayman Islands. That so-called charity fund confirmation letter from yesterday was the death trap you set for me. Unfortunately for you, I intercepted and downloaded all those transfer IPs and money laundering paths long ago. Hyoka's perennially expressionless, ice queen face finally collapsed completely at this moment. Her pupils behind her gold-rimmed glasses contracted violently, and fine beads of cold sweat broke out on her forehead. She opened her mouth, but could not let out a single sound. System warning: the psychological defenses of targets Rina Kiryu, Mocha Kiryu, and Hyoka Kiryu have suffered a devastating blow. True favorability solidification update: extreme terror/utter despair. Watching the three of them, their faces ashen and looking like beaten dogs, the curve of my lips grew increasingly cruel as I pulled a black miniature voice recorder from the inner pocket of my suit. Of course, all of the above isn't quite enough to showcase the deep affection you three sisters have for me. Last night in the B3 underground parking lot, you joined forces to give me quite the grand surprise. I pressed the play button. Immediately, the recorder broadcasted the terrified confession of the mercenary leader from last night, followed by the ironclad evidence of the transaction records showing how the three of them pooled 50 million yen to hire an assassin to kill me. The moment the recording finished playing, the entire conference room fell into a deathly silence. The Chable executives in attendance all gasped, looking at the three sisters as if they were some kind of terrifying monsters. Hiring assassins to murder their own younger brother, this was no longer a mere family power struggle, but an extremely heinous criminal offense. I stood up straight, elegantly adjusted my suit tie, and announced to the entire room in the unquestionable tone of a superior. Now, in my capacity as the first-in-line heir and absolute controlling shareholder of the Kiryu Chable, I propose that these three suspects, implicated in murder, embezzlement, and money laundering, be immediately handed over to the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. Simultaneously, I will be taking full control of all Chable business operations under their names. I looked down at the three women, who had completely collapsed onto the floor, my gaze as cold as if I were looking at three crushed ants. Your game is over, sisters. Now it's my turn to make the rules. As my words fell, the sound of chaotic and hurried footsteps echoed from outside the heavy mahogany doors. Over a dozen detectives from the First Investigation Division of the Metropolitan Police Department, dressed in black suits, filed in under the lead of the conglomerate's security chief. The inspector leading the team presented the arrest warrants to me, then waved his hand. Cold metal handcuffs were ruthlessly snapped onto the wrists of the three noble young ladies. Don't touch me! Let go! I am the second miss of the Kiryu family, you bottom-tier trash! Mocha kicked and thrashed at the officers like a madwoman. Her once expensive custom galaxy gown was torn, and her diamond-encrusted nails split during the struggle, dripping with blood, yet she could no longer elicit pity from anyone. The eldest sister, Rina, finally broke down completely. She lunged toward me in desperation, only to have the hem of her skirt stepped on by Riru, causing her to fall pathetically onto the floor. She lifted her tear-streaked face, pleading without a shred of dignity. Sakuya! I beg of you, we're family! I was just blinded by jealousy. I swear I'll listen to everything you say from now on, I'll give you all the shares, just let me stay in the Kiryu family, okay? Family? I crouched down, tilting her chin up with my icy fingertips. Looking into the depths of the sheer terror in her eyes, my voice was as gentle as if I were discussing today's weather. When you ordered someone to pour poison into my soup, why didn't you think of us as family then? Take her away. Don't let her stain my carpet. Binghua, who had remained silent the entire time, suddenly stopped as she passed by me. She stared intently into my eyes as if trying to see through my very soul, her voice dry and raspy like sandpaper. You didn't just hide your strength. You can even see through every plan in our hearts. What kind of monster are you, exactly? Who knows? I straightened up, a mocking curve tugging at the corner of my mouth. Perhaps it was Father Spirit in heaven who granted me these eyes that see through all hypocrisy. Enjoy the rest of your life in prison, third sister. As the three sisters were escorted into the private elevator, their shrill, wretched screams gradually faded until they vanished completely. The vast top-floor conference room returned to a deathly silence. Those once arrogant conglomerate executives were now all as quiet as cicadas in winter, not even daring to breathe loudly. They kept their heads bowed low, showing their submission through action to this new king who had hidden so deep and acted so ruthlessly. I waved my hand, and the executives, looking as if they had received a divine pardon, bowed respectfully before filing out of the room. The massive double-leaf mahogany doors closed once again, sealing out all the noise and complexity. On my retina, the system panel popped up with a series of dazzling golden notifications. Main quest: purge the family cancers and seize control of the Kiryu Zaibatsu. Perfectly completed. Current actual control of the Zaibatsu, 100%. Asset inventory complete, fixed assets, offshore trusts, and liquid funds total over 3 trillion yen. Congratulations, host, on your coronation as king. I casually closed the panel and walked slowly toward the pure black leather throne in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, the symbol of the Kiryu family's supreme power. Sunlight spilled over my shoulders, and through the glass, the bustling scenery of most of Tokyo stretched out beneath me. From this day forward, this steel jungle and this massive 3 trillion yen empire will thoroughly carry out the will of me, Sakura Kiryu. Young master. Riru appeared silently behind me, holding a glass of top-tier red wine that had just finished breathing. Her voice remained cold and aloof, yet a flicker of absolute fanaticism and submission danced in her eyes. All obstacles have been cleared. The legal and PR departments will issue official statements within the hour, completely severing all ties between those 3 women and the Kiryu family. They will spend the rest of their lives in the lowest level of a maximum security prison. I took the goblet and gently swirled the crimson liquid, without turning around. Riru, you've worked hard these past 10+ years. If you hadn't stayed by my side to play this game of a pig eating the tiger, I wouldn't have survived until today. Hearing my words, this perfect maid, who usually resembled a ruthless killing machine, actually froze for a rare moment. Then, she slowly lifted her skirt and dropped to one knee behind me, placing her right hand over her heart and bowing her head like a knight swearing an oath of fealty. To serve you is the sole purpose of my existence. Her cold, detached inner voice echoed in my mind, devoid of even the slightest hint of falsehood. Rise. I turned around, draining the red wine in my glass in one gulp before casually setting the goblet down on the expansive solid wood desk. I strode toward the pure black leather master chair, turned, and sat down firmly. The slight creak of the leather echoed through the cavernous room. Resting my chin on my interlaced hands, I looked at the slender, black and white figure standing before the desk, my lips curling into the arrogant smile of a true victor. The old decay has been thoroughly swept away. Now, Riru, keep pace with me. Yes, my lord. The true king of Kiryu, at this very moment, has finally ushered in a new era that belongs to me. The end. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you.